All right. Ready?
Are we live?
Yeah.
You live? Okay.
Yes, you are.
Thank you everybody for your patience and thank you for joining us. I know you have a lot of other options after seeing those two great films and you chose to be with us today, so we greatly appreciate that. We wanted to come after the films to have a Q&A so you can see some of the people involved in the film, the two films that you saw today, but also have some experts here to talk about what you saw, both on Zeta Costa and the other film today, which you saw very powerfully about the Entrada, which is just a few blocks away. So I really thank you for joining. My name is Russell Contreras. I'm a reporter with the Associated Press. And just before we get started, I do want to point out two things that are newsworthy. The film you saw today, a couple of weeks ago, or actually a few days ago, the organizer of the Entrada announced they would no longer do the Entrada. And then the day afterwards, and then about a day and a half or 2 days afterwards, the groups officially issued an apology publicly. More than 40 years in the making. They came out and issued, and some of them said, although we weren't around, we wouldn't apologize, but they are owning it and saying that after conversations that I think humanize once you get humans in the room and you actually listen to each other, they've concluded that yes, we caused pain and they apologized. So I just want to make that note that since this film was made, this is a fast-moving train and that's resulting in that. So we have here a wonderful group of panelists here. I am not an elder, unfortunately, but I do have problems with my eyesight, so I may look a little way. Right? No, I don't need glasses because that would actually be it would be terrible. But as you mentioned, I'm Russell. Sitting next to me is my good friend Santiago Aguirre Vasquez. He is a professor at the University of New Mexico in Spanish, and he has taught Chicano literature, and he has specifically taught Zeta Costa, which you saw today. Speaking of Zeta Costa, we have Ricardo Lopez of the film and the producers of the film for the Brown Buffalo. We will talk about that too as well. Standing right next to me is Natachi Momade. She is a writer who are based here in New Mexico as well. You also have Gomil here. It's a film. You saw his images there in the film. And we also have Chan, of course, yeah. Okay. Of course, that's how bad my eyesight is, so I apologize here. And I actually write copy for the Associated Press every day, so if you see typos, it's not really me. I want to start off in this discussion. We have two films here, and this is an interesting time here in New Mexico, as I mentioned, the Entrada, but also the coming together intersectionality. We saw two different films, both the Mexican-American version, both the Native American version, and it was really a treatise, a discussion about what has happened since the Reconquest, since the reintroduction, that you have new cultures come together, but have formed something, and there's a revolution in identity that's coming up, and a reclaiming of such. Yes, there's healing too, but to start off with, I would like to pose this question. In doing this project of pieces of art, were there internal personal discussions that steep into the art that, although you did not touch upon yourself personally, you felt you had a personal mission to get this out, that it was deep inside you? We all have these struggles, as my mom says, the conquest is coming out every time you eat something bad. That's because the food that you are ingesting has not reconciled with the environment. This, of course, is an emotional journey, but how did you reconcile your personal experiences to the products you're making? And I'll start with you, Mark.
Oh, geez. That's an interesting question. I'm waiting for her to answer this. How did I reconcile?
Yeah.
Well, there's a backstory to the Oscar project. When I was in the military, I was from 67 to 71, I missed the whole Chicano movement in East LA. Those were the prime years, and I'm sure the professor will agree with me. Those were the prime years of the movement. But it was during that time that I became familiar, while I was in and out of Vietnam, of Ruben Salazar. But at the same time, learning about Ruben Salazar, really, I started realizing that the war was not overseas. The war was really back home. You've heard that before, but no, it really was true for me.
And Ruben Salazar was the journalist.
The journalist that in the documentary who was killed on August 29th when the moratorium was taking place in East Los Angeles. I'm going to get to this question. I'm going to go around about it. That's okay. Okay. But when I returned, I was starting to learn about Oscar. So when I started learning about Oscar and putting it together with Ruben Salazar, it became a personal journey. Learning about two people who were very important within the Chicano movement, who I totally missed. I wasn't there. So it became a personal journey for me to start researching both of these gentlemen. When I returned, Oscar was still around. Oscar and I would miss each other at parties. I would go somewhere, Oscar was just here. People would say, you gotta meet Oscar. You gotta meet this guy. You just miss. And the next thing I know, it's gone. So the journey became a learning about two men who were so important within our Chicano culture, and it's part of our history and our story. So, and at that time, Philip Rodriguez, the director of the film, had also started his own personal journey. So here were two people involved in the arts who didn't know each other, and over years, over a period of time, over a journey, two personal journeys came together. And so when this journey crossed paths, there was so much personal, interest, so much guidance, wanting to see this film come to fruition. And also, while in the process of that, the importance of including Ruben, who was also part of the story of Oscar Costa, both fighting for justice. One really crazy about Oscar, and one journalist who was torn within himself when we talk about identity. Both had identity issues, and yet they were so relevant coming together and telling their story, their journey, their life. And for us, myself, as a producer, and working with a super talented director, we both had personal journeys to accomplish this.
The film Video of Entrada, there's a long windup as you're starting getting different voices in New Mexico. It deconstructs this idea of New Mexico truth, all about beautiful photos, all about we all get along. To me, that took a lot of work and a lot of research, and just a lot of editing there to get us to that point. And then when we got to the entrada, I saw what you were doing, your journey.
Well, thank you, Russell. And I want to point out that it was Janelle Romero's curation of this festival that helped bring out a hidden history, much as the stories of Chicanos are hidden or overlooked. New Mexico's history, it feels like part of me is missing. I went to UNM. I studied New Mexico history back in the Dark Ages. I won't say what year it was. I read Warren Beck's 4 Centuries of New Mexico History. There's one mention of Popeye. There's a mention of the Savages. And there's pages and pages about the conquistadors. And I hated myself that I didn't notice it at the time. I thought I was a caring person who worried about the world and read things. I read that whole book cover to cover, and it never occurred to me that
a good correction. They vowed to get rid of the pageantry, is what they
Right.
said, which is the conquistador walking in. What is bringing replacement, we still don't know yet. And I think that's, but the good thing is that both sides are discussing
Right.
about this. So
That's very helpful.
so there is promise there. Our writers and our artists here, responding to the film, we did both films as artists and as I think the film said something like, the art is a response and an attempt to heal for reconciliation. And as you see this, are you reminded about the mission of your work? When you see, you have a lot of different things you want to accomplish in our production, but did that resonate with you when you saw it? I'll start with you, Ms. Moore.
Well, I think that when I started working on this film, I think that, we're all mixed here in Mexico, and I think that, especially in Santa Fe, being, native, I identify as native, but I also have other blood and, good friends who are of blood, and I think that that's really important to recognize in this situation and working on this film. I think that we all really do embody our ancestors in this case, and my work is really personal, and it's not necessarily calling anybody out. It is just telling my own story, and I think that that is the most important thing that I can do.
Do you call anybody out in your work?
I do.
That's okay.
My name is Gomio Babu. I'm from the Zuni Pueblo. And so we have a different narrative on the other side of the state. Okay, we're not part of the Santa Fe Pueblo Revolt. We had our Pueblo Revolt in 1632. We had our Pueblo Revolt in 1540 with Coronado, looking for the 7 cities to go. So when Jema came to Zuni, I wanted to take her to the ruins of where Coronado came, because PBS was coming down. They're taking infrared scanning of the land, and they want to know where these Spanish settlements were. And I said, well, we need a Zuni narrative. We need a Pueblo narrative. So right now there's a film out there called Zuni in the Grand Canyon. Okay, so that's from the medicine people. I said I can't speak on behalf of the medicine people that were sacrificed in the plaza. So that's where my heart lies. Is that as part of the Pueblo Revolt, the medicine people were taken away in the 1600s, and then in the 1800s, the Lakota people, the other story that we're going to be showing tomorrow, A Woman Walks Ahead, is about, the Indian problem. The cavalry and the government are going to take care of the native people, and they're going to incarcerate us. And so, as an artist, my other life is a background actor. So every summer we get hired to be the authentic natives, to be part of the massacre or be part of, the cavalry. And so sometimes it's hard to process your emotions behind the scene. You have to get it together. And sometimes it's like, nobody really tells us what we're doing. And so are we going to be laughing or we're being part of this massacre scene, or, we need a little bit of direction. So this is where I came kind of as an artist that, I have to help educate the people that are following, the people that look up to me, because I'm a child from the 60s and 70s, and there's a stigma attached to our people in the Southwest. It's always the drunk history. It's always the alcoholism. And, that is one of the things where, when we're rising up and we're talking about, we're coming up against the Catholic Church, basically the Entrada. Because what's going on with the Entrada is they're marching in with this, the Virgin Mary, the La Conquistadora. And a lot of people don't know that as a Zuni person, we don't have a feast. We have a patron saint, Santa Niño, but we don't do any dances, that have to do with Catholic. Ours is more Gachino, ours is more the Mass. mass dances. Ours is earth worship. It's not witchcraft. And that is one of the things where like I have to take a stand, is that if you're going to be attacking me with your culture, then I'm going to have to take a stand defending my culture. We're earth-based, and so this is why I speak up. And sometimes, you know, I always say that I'm controversial because I'm a gay Pueblo Zuni man. And so I'm here to advocate for the LGBT community because, you know, as a two-spirited person, you know, I endure a lot of bullying. I've endured bullying for the past 40 years, and so now that, you know, when the women of Red Nation, from UNM, Jennifer Marley, Dr. Melanie Yazzie, they gave us courage because, you know, I was afraid. I was afraid because I was enduring a lot of persecution in my pueblo because I'm not allowed to be part of the kiva because I have Jesus. You know, I'm not baptized in the Catholic faith. I just choose to go worship in that space, and I get a lot of criticism. So this year, my life has changed. 2 years ago, we shot this documentary. We followed this movement because innately there was something going on. We're watching the art, we're watching the people rise up. We're watching our families get murdered. You know, we're right now in the moment. A lot of children are getting trafficked for sexual exploitation. You know, all this, you know, heroin. You know, there's drug abuse. You know, this is what we're rising up against. And the reason I keep turning to my art is because that's the only way that I can find peace of mind in my jewelry, and that I can honor the memory of the Zuni silversmith that have given me all the energy and the magic that I need to survive today, that I can overcome the suicide, I can overcome my brother's murder. And I came here to Santa Fe to heal myself. I don't know what kind of spirit I followed through the roads and the rivers, but this is where I am, and I'm alive, and I'm so glad to be alive today, and I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid anymore because, you know, when I was able to stand up and, you know, embrace my sexuality and talk to my kids, asking them, I'm not going to be ashamed. Are you going to be ashamed of me? Are you going to be standing up for me when my ass is being kicked? You know, I was beat up last Ash Wednesday. You know, I went to church, and I knew that something was not right. You know, there's something evil about the church. You know, in my Indian way, that's what I feel. So I go, I'm drawn to this energy. And so when I got home with my ashes from Ash Wednesday, I knew that something wasn't right. And then I knew that somebody followed me home, and then I got my ass kicked out in the parking lot. Nobody helped me. Nobody will ever help me. That's why I'm standing here. I'm standing here, and I just have to find the medicine within to say that, you know, I'm always going to look out for you, no matter what race you are. Because there's a lot of street people out there that are not the same color as I am, but I'm taking care of them because I don't want them to die on the streets. So anyway, that's why I'm here, is because I don't like people being picked on. I am very different. And all the different people out there, they're always going to get picked on. They're always going to get bullied. But you know what? I'm not going to let them kill me. And I'm not ready to die. So that's why I keep coming back. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Speaking of someone who would stand up for the downtrodden, those who are marginalized, Zeta Costa, that was one of the first books I read as an undergrad. And in some aspects, he's been forgotten, but he's seen the resurgence. Santiago, you have always taught him in your class. Why do you embrace his work? And second, what is your reaction to the film and seeing him, this dramatic replay of his images using actors?
First off, I'd like to congratulate both films. I think that they're really fantastic. And I was really interested when the documentary came out, because Acosta for me has always been one of these figures. He's difficult to teach now because he is so big, as Joe Russell keeps saying in the film. Right? He's big. He's gargantuan. Right? His appetite is huge. He participates in all sorts of not very nice things. His treatment of women is very problematic. His ingestion of massive quantities of drugs. But at the same time, I think he's still important to teach, to talk about this journey, right? I think this is probably a thing that connects both of these films. It's this sense of this journey of this individual who was growing up and who was born into a society that always treated him as other, right? And so there's that saying, of course, that I'm sure you may have heard, that says the enemy is one whose story we don't know, and we don't need to know the story of the other, right? Because then we can create whatever story we want. So this notion of Acosta as a brown buffalo, later as a cockroach, as General Zeta. Love the shirt, by the way. I want to give him one of those t-shirts. Yeah, there you go. But I think that that he embodies a lot of the issues of the Mexican American, the Chicano generation, of that particular generation. Now, I am not of that generation. I often say that I'm a product of the Chicano generation. I was born in the late 1960s. So I'm a product of bilingual education. I'm a product of having Chicano studies professors at university. I now teach Chicano literature. So for me, I always view myself as sort of a product of what that generation fought for. And again, going back to this question about Acosta's position in it, right? When we think about Chicano literature, we often think about figures like Rodolfo Anaya, right? Very important figure.
Les Mi
Última, New Mexican writer. Denise Chavez, also from New Mexico, from Las Cruces. Rolando Hinojosa Smith from South Texas. Tomas Rivera. And these are writers who have endured since the Chicano movement. But Acosta has always sort of been kind of like almost, I'm not going to say forgotten. I think that there are people out there. There are those of us who still remember his insanity and still view that crazy energy of his as a force of power. And I think of people like Lalo Alcaraz now, the cartoonist who uses that same type of, it's going to go up to the line and it's going to cross the line, but it will always have at its very core justice. Right? And at its very core, it will be about, look at me, we belong. We are not other. We are a part of this country. Always been a part of this country. So I think that Acosta, warts and all, right? I mean, he is. When you read his books, I love teaching now to my undergrads who feel like this book is crazy, and they're trying to figure out, because they read very moralistically. They try to figure out, well, is he a nice guy? I'm like, well, we should think beyond that. What was he fighting for? And what was the context of the time? And how does he stand against that? Or stand within that time period? So I feel that this film is actually really interesting, because here's a character who is so central to the Chicano movement, but also at the same time still marginalized. And that's also been one of the things that I've always been interested in my own, thinking about my own personal journey as a Chicano writer and scholar, is that I've always been interested in the marginal figures, and probably because I grew up on the U.S.-Mexico border. So I've always been interested in as an undergraduate, I was an art major, and so I was looking at the work of Asco, for example, in Los Angeles in the 1980s, and what they were doing in the 70s and 80s, and what they were doing in regards to questioning what Chicano art was at the time. Like Gronk, I think, is an amazing, one of my favorite Chicano artists, right? Patsy Valdez is amazing. Her prints of the punk rock culture. And so at the same time, as a former DJ at a punk rock radio station in the 80s, when I was an undergrad, right, that was my community. Right? So I was looking for models like Asco, like the brothers Hernandez, like Oscar Zeta. I'm not that insane. My students may disagree, but I do think that he is one of these characters one of these figures that we should still sort of remember what he stood for, and and the limits that he would go to fight for his community.
I kept thinking of this film, and by the way, while you were listening to Pump, I was listening to Whitney Houston. So Whitney Houston way, right? Yeah. But I kept thinking of this, watching both films, this was about the movement of yesterday, and then this film is about the Red Nation movement of today. I almost saw a linear connection. Same tactics used, goals to get it out. So I want to ask you, Janelle, it's like, what prompted you to put these two films together? Because I thought I saw it definitely in line connection.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, whoever put this together was brilliant. So.
Well, I must say that when we're curating the festival every year, I mean, this year is really something that's very sacred, very special, very magical, very distinct, and you could even like write this in the script how it's all playing out with where we're at with Trumpism, where we're at with Santa Fe, with Entrada, and our Native relatives, and where we're at in Hollywood with Native women in film. And sometimes, you know, when we're curating, I go into a deep, honestly, I go into a deep meditation, and I sit back for a little while to see what voices come speaking out, because to me, this is a very spiritual experience, curating this festival. It's something I don't take lightly, and so knowing what we're all up against as humanity, I wanted to be able to facilitate a dialogue and a visual to bring humanity together in a place where we can have a dialogue and have a safe place to commune and experience each other for humanity's sake, because we're at a very trying time right now with all of us. And you know, with this festival, I waited to be my home last year to launch our Why We Wear Red. And a lot of people ask me, what does that mean? And what that means is we all have red blood. All of us have red, even our animals have red blood. So on the bigger spiritual picture, you know, we all have red blood, but our focus with this is our murdered and missing women and the lack of inclusion of Native women in film and television. And now with seeing Indian Horse last night, you know, we're including our Native boys who've been molested by the police through the residential schools. And it's just, you can't write this in a script, you know, with all the news today and priests today. And me personally, my history is I'm from both. My bloodline is both. You know, I'm Spanish Sephardic Jew. If you go up to the cathedral in the plaza, my relative is etched on the glass there. He was the first ordained priest before this was the United States of America. And he's buried under that church. And then on the other side, well, both my mom and my dad are both Native. You know, Apache, Paiute, Dene. And so here I am. So my blood runs very rich with my ancestors here in this territory. So to bring all this visual